Do you know the rules a ruin guard must follow? Not the ones in the official manual, but the real rules. You don't? Then you're lucky. But now that you're hearing this story, you'll know them too. And once you know them, you can never forget. My name is Michael Davis. 2 months ago, I broke all 4 rules at the Disney ruin to find my brother. This is the result. That distorted Mickey Mouse stone statue that appears beneath my apartment window every night at 3:17 a.m. He's laughing, a shiny hammer in his hand. At first, I thought it was a hallucination. I told myself it was due to stress and lack of sleep. But the footprints the statue left behind were real. In the morning, deep cracks ran across the concrete beneath my window, scattered with metal fragments. My landlord shrugs, saying, "It's probably just the building aging," but I know. It's a warning. But the story begins 40 years ago. That summer, my brother, Tommy, disappeared. It all started in the summer of 1984, on a perfect day at River Country. Disney's first water park opened in 1976. A dream paradise recreating the good old American riverside, or so it was presented. That day, we drove 3 hours on the highway. In the back seat of my dad's old Chevrolet, Tommy was leaning out the window in excitement.
Michael, look, that's Disney World over there.
My 10-year-old brother's eyes sparkled as if he were gazing at stars. I was 14. And I thought such childish excitement was embarrassing. But seeing Tommy smile, my heart naturally lifted. Mom turned back from the passenger seat and smiled, saying, "Let's take lots of pictures." Even Dad, usually a man of few words, was humming along to the car radio that day. When we arrived at River Country, a giant Mickey Mouse statue greeted us at the entrance gate. It was made of pure white concrete, with open arms and a wide smile. Tommy wanted to take a commemorative photo in front of it, and we spent 30 minutes posing for pictures. That day, 10-year-old Tommy and I were obsessed with the slides from morning till night. On a huge slide called Whitewater Rapids, Tommy kept shouting,
"One more time."
His smaller body bravely slid down from the highest point. Each time, water splashed up, and cheers erupted from the children around us. Our parents watched us from a picnic table, and Mom kept smiling all day. She had prepared homemade sandwiches and lemonade, repeatedly offering us more, saying, "Boys are growing." Even Dad tried the tire swing and fell into the water, making us burst into laughter. My usually strict father showed his true paternal face only that day, and there were cats in the park, kept for mouse control. An orange kitten, a black mother cat, small white furballs. Tommy's eyes sparkled at these pets, the first we'd ever touched. He gently stroked them with his small hands, saying, "Let's get a cat at home someday." At dusk, we took one last photo in front of the Mickey statue. The 4 of us huddled together as the setting sun painted the sky orange. Tommy leaned on my shoulder, tired, and whispered,
"Today was the best."
It was a perfect family moment. We never dreamed it would be our last. After we returned from the trip, Tommy changed. At first, I thought it was just mild fatigue. After all, he had been playing under the sun for a long time. However, a few days later, Tommy started craving water abnormally, glass after glass, as if all the water in his body was evaporating. I first noticed something was wrong when I heard the sound of water from the kitchen in the middle of the night. When I opened the door, he was plunging his face into the sink, drinking directly from the faucet. Even when I called out, "Tommy, what's wrong?" he kept drinking, as if he couldn't hear me. The sight was abnormal. A 10-year-old child desperately craving water, like an animal deprived of it for days in the desert. His shirt was soaked, and there was a puddle on the floor. I saw him many times standing in the kitchen in the middle of the night, drinking from the faucet. When Mom worried and consulted a doctor, the vague diagnosis was he might be dehydrated from the summer heat, but our house was air-conditioned and never hot. He refused food, only asking for water. Tommy wouldn't touch his favorite meatloaf or apple pie that Mom made. When Mom asked,
"Aren't you hungry?"
Tommy would only shake his head. Doctors were puzzled, performing repeated blood tests, urine tests, and x-rays, but the cause remained unknown. Even within 4, Tommy's body wasted away day by day. His cheeks were hollow, his eyes sunken, as if something was eating him from the inside. Mom cried, muttering,
"Why is this happening to my son?"
and Dad punched the wall in anger. When one of the doctors suggested it might be psychological, Dad was furious.
My son is sick. It's not just in his head.
However, there was no medical explanation. The only time Tommy regained his vitality was when he talked about water.
I want to go swimming again. The water at River Country was special. I want to see those cats again.
He muttered, his eyes gazing into the distance, as if seeing something we couldn't. I'll never forget it. One Tuesday night, Tommy vanished. Mom checked on Tommy around 2 a.m. during her nightly rounds. The bed was empty, the Donald Duck curtains were torn, and the window was wide open. How could a 10-year-old child, so weakened, have gotten out of a second-story window? I woke up to my mother's scream.
"Tommy's gone. Tommy's gone."
Rushing into the room in my pajamas, the bed was indeed empty. The pillows still had the impression of a head, indicating someone had been sleeping there just moments before. The window frame had marks as if something had scratched it, and the way the curtains were torn was unusual. Irregular, violent rips, as if something had thrashed inside and torn them. Yet, no one had heard any such noise. Dad frantically called the police, and I grabbed a flashlight and searched around the house. In the humid summer night air, I kept shouting, "Tommy, Tommy," but there was no reply. Neighbors joined the search, but no clues were found. The police found Tommy's torn sweater the next morning by the River Country poolside. It was a blue sweater, his favorite, which Mom had knitted the previous winter, but it wasn't torn normally. It had countless sharp claw marks, as if ripped by a wild animal, and it was covered in cat fur, orange, black, white, gray, the colors of the cats we had touched at River Country. But how did Tommy get into the park, which should have been locked at night, and where did he disappear to? Police dogs were used in the search. The dogs sniffed the sweater and at first barked excitedly, but then their behavior suddenly changed at the poolside. They flattened their ears, tucked their tails, and backed away as if afraid of something. It was unusual for trained police dogs to be so agitated. A week of searching yielded nothing. Tommy had vanished without a trace, as if he had dissolved into water. Then, men in suits appeared. They claimed to represent Disney and offered a check for $50,000 as hush money.
We understand your family's grief. However, the spread of unfounded rumors is not in anyone's interest.
Their voices were quiet, but their words carried an undeniable intimidation. We had no choice. My father's job was unstable, and we were drowning in debt, so we had to seal the truth. But in my heart, I vowed that someday I would uncover the truth. Later, we would learn that Tommy wasn't the only one. After graduating from high school, I began researching past newspaper articles in the library. In the era before widespread internet, information gathering was a painstaking process. I spent hours poring over old articles on microfilm readers. There had been other suspicious deaths at River Country. In 1978, an 8-year-old girl died of an unknown illness. Her symptoms, like Tommy's, included abnormal thirst and refusal to eat. In 1981, twin brothers disappeared simultaneously and were found dead a week later in the park's maintenance shed. The cause of death was drowning, but the water in their lungs was not fresh water, but abnormally high in chlorine. Employee accidents were also frequent. A night guard died of a heart attack, a cleaner had a mysterious fall, and a maintenance worker was electrocuted. Individually, they seemed like accidental occurrences, but their frequency was statistically abnormal. What shocked me most was an article from 1983. A former River Country employee was interviewed by a local newspaper.
Something is in that place.
She said,
At night, I hear children's laughter, but there's no one in the park. And there are an unusually large number of cats, as if they fled from something.
However, a week after this article was published, the woman died in a car accident. According to eyewitnesses, she suddenly swerved her car into a tree, as if fleeing from something. Disney announced it was the work of brain-eating amoebas, but that was just the official explanation. Brain-eating amoebas are contracted through the nose and do not cause symptoms like Tommy's. Furthermore, there were many contradictions between the official announcement and the actual cases. In 1999, River Country closed due to lack of demand. However, the number of visitors at that time was not small at all. The real reason lies in a deeper darkness. Now, 40 years later, I was working for a security company. When I was struggling with my father's medical bills, a night watchman job with an exceptional salary was offered. $50 an hour, 5 days a week, making the monthly income 3 times that of a regular security guard. The employer was Disney. The workplace, the former River Country site. The HR representative was a young woman, but her expression was stern when talking about the job.
To be honest, Mr. Davis, not many people last long in this job. They quit after an average of 3 months.
When I asked why, she replied hesitantly,
They say they can't stand the loneliness. And there are a lot of wild animals.
it was a job no one wanted. Spending the night alone in the ruined park. No electricity, no running water, no cell phone signal. Still, I volunteered. I needed the money, and there was another reason. The time had come to finally confront the place that took Tommy from me. It was time to settle the score with the memories I had sealed away for 40 years. At the end of the interview, the HR representative looked at my resume and said,
Mr. Davis, were you perhaps at River Country in 1984?
I nodded. Her face turned pale.
Do you still accept this job?
That's precisely why, I replied. There's something I need to finish. My predecessor, Robert Chambers, was a man who had been doing this job for 12 years. I first met him at a small diner in Florida. A gaunt man with deep wrinkles etched on his face, nervously clinging to his coffee. His hands trembled constantly, like a Parkinson's patient. But in his eyes, there was not madness, but the light of deep wisdom.
Michael.
He called my name with a familiarity, as if meeting an old friend.
I know about your brother, Tommy Davis. Disappeared August 15, 1984. Right?
I was surprised. How did he know such details?
You're not the only one.
Robert continued.
There are others who lost family in that place. Everyone eventually returns there. You're one of them.
He handed me an old map covered in notes. It was heavily annotated with handwritten remarks, like a battlefield strategy map. There were red X marks here and there, with warnings like, danger, do not approach, and sounds heard here. In the bottom right corner, 4 rules were written in his handwriting. Rule 1. Do not talk to Mickey. It sounds like a joke, but believe me, they're waiting for you to talk to them. Once you start a conversation, it never ends. Bad things will happen. Rule 2. Always retrieve dropped tools. Hammers and screwdrivers appear spontaneously in that place. If you leave them, problems will arise. If you find one, immediately lock it in the toolbox. Never try to take it with you. Things from there must stay there. Rule 3. Do not cross the river. Avoid even looking at it. There shouldn't have been a river in river country. I was confused. You'll understand when the time comes. That river only appears at night. Even if you hear the sound of water, never approach it. Whatever you see on the other side is an illusion. Rule 4. If you get lost, follow the cats. They know this place better than anyone. They've been there much longer than humans. The orange one, in particular, is trustworthy. Only that one truly wants to help people. Robert clapped me on the shoulder and said,
Michael, I know what you're looking for, but what you find may not be what you expect. Be prepared.
Before leaving, he handed me another slip of paper. It had a phone number and the words, emergency only.
If things really become hopeless, call this number, but try not to use it if you can help it. People who go to help sometimes don't come back.
At dusk, arriving at the ruin by boat, I was speechless at the sight of desolation. Since the official access road to river country was blocked, I had to cross the lake in a small motorboat provided by Disney. The boat was piloted by a taciturn old man who maintained a grim expression throughout. If you're not back by dawn, I'll come pick you up first thing in the morning. If you're not back by dawn, I'll come pick you up first thing in the morning. Those were his only words. Stepping ashore, the first thing that hit my nose was the smell of decay. Damp wood, rusted metal, and a faint smell of chlorine mixed, emitting a uniquely unpleasant odor. 40 years had transformed the former paradise into a ruin. The welcome sign was faded, the letters almost unreadable. Buildings were collapsed, roofs riddled with holes, and vines and weeds covered everything. The slides where children's laughter once echoed were now bird nests. I set up my tent near the entrance. The equipment provided by Disney was minimal. A sleeping bag, a flashlight, a radio, and 7 days' worth of food and water. The radio was for emergencies only. Essentially, I would spend the night completely isolated. There was a giant Mickey Mouse stone statue there. It was also marked on Robert's map. He, who was supposed to be waving with open arms in a welcoming pose, was stripped of paint, exposing the gray concrete. Upon closer inspection, countless cracks ran across its surface, and one finger on its right hand was missing. At its feet, a black cat lay curled up, sleeping. It didn't flee when I approached, as if it had been waiting for my arrival. The cat wore an old collar and a metal tag reflected in the moonlight. Checking the map, I noticed something strange. The Mickey statue's position was different from reality. It was drawn in the center of the entrance on the map, but it was actually to the right. Robert must be getting old. I muttered and casually tapped the statue's head. At that moment, a cold, damp sensation lingered on my hand, an unpleasant feeling, as if touching living skin. The statue's surface was wet with dew, but there was an unexplained warmth that went beyond that. "Wish me luck, buddy," I said to the cat at my feet. I might have broken the first rule, but I could excuse it by saying I spoke to a cat. The cat opened one eye, looked at me, and purred softly, as if saying, "Understood." As I patrolled the park, I realized that the map's locations did not match the actual structures. This was not simply due to the passage of years. Buildings were in completely different places, and structures not on the map were scattered about. What was most confusing was the number of pools. The map listed only 3, but there were actually 7 pools, and some of them were filled with water. Where was the water coming from? There should have been no electricity or running water. Mickey Mouse stone statues were scattered everywhere, but I didn't remember there being so many. In my childhood memories, there was only one at the entrance. But now, there were at least 20, and none of them were normal Mickeys. Statues with unnaturally long limbs, joints bent at impossible angles, and sunken eyes staring at me. A statue dressed as Santa had another face peeking out from under its hat. A color-inverted statue had black whites of its eyes, and its pupils seemed to glow. And a headless statue had something dripping from the severed neck. It was like a place where discarded Disney projects were thrown away. But when were these statues made? Did someone put them there after the park closed, or had I simply overlooked them from the beginning? Then, a sound like concrete scraping echoed from all directions. At first, I thought it was the old buildings, but the sound was regular and seemed intentional. A heavy, dull sound, as if a giant stone was being dragged across the ground. I grabbed my flashlight and searched for the source of the sound. But when I pointed the light, the sound stopped and started again from another direction, as if toying with me. A cold shiver ran down my spine when I noticed the grass around the statue swaying, even though there was no wind. In the middle of the path lay a shiny, gleaming screwdriver. It was the only new thing in this ruin. It was brand new, as if just shipped from the factory this morning, and there was even a price tag mark on the handle. Remembering Robert's second rule, I carefully picked it up. The metal was surprisingly cold, and my hand tingled the moment I gripped it. There was something about this tool that wasn't a normal screwdriver. Someone was testing me. Typical Disney employee management. I looked for the toolbox Robert had left behind. An old toolbox hidden near the tent, secured with a padlock. The key was taped to the back of the map. When I opened the box, various tools were neatly arranged inside, but they were all brand new, as if purchased yesterday. After putting the screwdriver in the toolbox and locking it, I returned to the entrance. There, I gasped. The Mickey statue had changed its orientation. Initially, it had open arms, welcoming visitors into the park, but now it was facing the exit, beckoning with one hand. The other hand was on its hip, as if urging me to hurry up and get out. I frantically checked the map. It clearly stated that the statue faced the entrance, but reality was different. Examining the statue's base, there were marks on the concrete pedestal indicating it had rotated. How could such a heavy stone statue move on its own? My heart pounded. Someone was here, but I heard no footsteps, no sounds. I reached for the radio, but reconsidered. Reporting an emergency on the first day was something my pride as a security guard wouldn't allow. When a metallic sound echoed from the back of the park, I discovered a glowing hammer. This time it was a pickaxe hammer, placed at the foot of another Mickey statue. This statue was posed with both hands raised above its head, as if about to swing the hammer down. Footsteps receded behind the bushes. Hey, who's there? I chased the footsteps, flashlight in hand. But no matter how much I ran, the distance didn't close. It was like playing hide and seek with something invisible. I could distinctly hear footsteps, but I couldn't see their owner. I calculated as I ran. I should be the only one allowed in this ruin with Disney's permission. Yet, the footsteps were clearly human. The sound of shoes hitting the ground, branches snapping, the hint of labored breathing. As I went deeper into the park, the trees became dense, and it was more like a forest than an amusement park. Moonlight didn't reach, and I relied solely on my flashlight. The number of Mickey statues continued to increase, appearing even in the trees. All of them were bizarre. Safari Mickey wielding a machete, a pale, obese Mickey, a clown Mickey with a deformed face, a fisherman Mickey with a fishing rod, a Mickey in a doctor's white coat with a knife around its neck instead of a stethoscope. None of these existed in the real Disney parks. The most eerie were the child-sized Mickey statues. They had realistic bodies, as if molded from real children. Only their faces were replaced with Mickey Mouse, sporting unnatural smiles. I stopped and looked around. At some point, all the statues were facing me. They were arranged in a circle, surrounding me like an audience watching a stage, and all of them had the same unsettling smile. Breaking through the bushes, I gasped. A river flowed through the center of the park. There was no river in River Country. It was supposed to be a facility with only pools and slides. Yet, it was flowing, making the sound of water. The river was about 10 meters wide, and its depth was immeasurable. The water was black, reflecting light like oil. Checking the map, a wavy line was drawn in the center of the park, with Robert's note, "The river starts here." He was serious. But where was this river getting its water from? Was it an underground spring in Florida, or a Mickey statue standing on the riverbank was clutching the hammer I had forgotten earlier, but it didn't fit in a normal Mickey's hand? Why would an amusement park mascot need tools? This statue's expression was different from the others. It wasn't smiling. It had a serious, almost warning expression. Looking across the river, I could faintly see the shadow of a building, but it wasn't a ruin. It radiated bright light, as if it were still operating. I could hear children's laughter, but was it a memory from 40 years ago, or reality? I knelt by the riverbank and reached for the water. At that moment, something touched my head from behind, and a high-pitched whisper echoed in my ear.
Michael, over here. Let's swim together.
The voice was my mother's, but my mother had died 5 years ago. Terror peaked, and I recoiled from the riverbank. When I turned, no one was there, but wet footprints remained on the ground. I ran. I shouldn't be here anymore. Something was fundamentally wrong. I ran at full speed through the park, but no matter how much I ran, I always returned to the riverbank. This was physically impossible. The park shouldn't have been this vast. According to the map, River Country's grounds were about 6 acres. Yet, I had been running for over 30 minutes and still couldn't find the exit. The map was useless, and the compass was malfunctioning. The needle, which should have pointed north, spun in circles. GPS was out of range, and I had no idea where I was. From all around me, the sound of stone scraping grew closer. The Mickey statues climbed down from the trees, crossed the river, and looked at me with unnaturally twisted necks. Their movements were mechanical, like wind-up dolls, but their eyes were alive. I felt their will to capture me. The statues lined up and walked toward me. Their footsteps were heavy, like stone hitting concrete, and the ground vibrated. I backed away, but realized there were statues behind me too. I was completely surrounded. In despair, a gray cat appeared. Its fur bristled, threatening something behind me. With a sharp hiss, a white cat leaped out and attacked something behind me. A wet tearing sound, and the thud of something heavy falling. I also heard the sound of concrete shattering. I didn't have the courage to turn around, but the footsteps of the statues definitely stopped. Multiple cats surrounded me, holding off the enemy behind me. Black cats, gray cats, brown cats. All of them had surprisingly good fur for strays. as if they were someone's pets. Among them, an orange cat sat on a fallen tree, slowly wagging its tail. When our eyes met, the cat let out a small meow, as if saying, "This way. You know the way?" When I asked, the cat twitched its nose and stood up. Then it jumped into the bushes, its tail held high like a flag, and led me. The orange cat guided me with sure footing. There was something special about this cat. It had a human intelligence, different from the other cats. Every time I looked back, it checked to make sure I was following. Its fur glowed brightly even in the darkness, illuminating the path like a lantern. As I followed the cat, I remembered my childhood memories. Tommy playing with cats at River Country.
This cat seems to know my name.
Tommy had said.
It turns around when I call Tommy.
Behind me, I could still hear the cries of the other cats fighting, but the scraping sound of stone gradually faded. Occasionally, I heard the sound of heavy objects falling and metal clanging. The cats were fighting something to protect me. My lungs burned, and my legs felt heavy as lead, but a small hope sustained me. Only this cat wouldn't betray me, the last living thing Tommy touched 40 years ago. Perhaps this cat knew what happened to Tommy. The dense bushes gradually opened, the ground flattened, and I saw a faint sunrise reflecting on the water. The cat's pace slowed, and finally, the park's entrance gate came into view. I sighed with relief, but when I turned around, a shocking sight awaited me. The forest, the river, and the Mickey statues had all vanished. There was only a ruin with a few decaying picnic tables. What was that place I had wandered through all night? As the sky brightened, the Mickey statue at the entrance also vanished. Such a colossal stone statue, gone without a trace. There wasn't even a pedestal, as if it had never existed. I rubbed my eyes in disbelief, shaking my head repeatedly, but reality remained unchanged. I returned to my tent and held the orange cat, who had saved my life, on my lap. The cat seemed tired and peacefully surrendered to my embrace. I took a tuna sandwich from my backpack and shared it with the cat. The cat ate the tuna deliciously, looking up at me occasionally. Its eyes held a deep intelligence, as if a human soul resided within them. As I stroked it, I noticed the cat's collar. It was an old leather collar, and a metal name tag gleamed. When I read it with trembling hands, my heart almost stopped. The collar was engraved with Tommy. The manufacturing date was August 1984, the very month Tommy disappeared. I gazed at the cat. He looked up at me too, with eyes full of adventure, just like that summer day 40 years ago. But now, there was something deeper, a quiet wisdom that only those who have lived long years possess. Tommy, could it be? Is that you? The cat meowed once and curled up on my lap, as if delighted to be reunited with his brother after a long wait. Its purr sounded somewhat like Tommy's laugh. I finally understood the true rules of River Country and why the cats were in this place. The vanished children weren't dead. They were living on, transformed in this place. Tears streamed down my cheeks. My brother, whom I had searched for 40 years, had been here all along, protecting me, guiding me. The next night, I was faced with a critical decision. I received a call from Disney's HR representative.
Mr. Davis, how was your first night's report?
I hesitated, wondering what to say. If I told the truth, I would be treated as mentally unstable. If I lied, I would continue this job. No particular problems, I replied. There are indeed many cats, but they're harmless.
Is that so? That's good. Actually, we've received some handover documents from your predecessor, Mr. Chambers.
I was surprised. Robert had left something? The next day, The envelope I received at the Disney office contained a handwritten letter.
Michael, if you're reading this letter, you survived your first night. Congratulations. And you must have learned the truth. The cats in that place were once human children. For some reason, they continue to live there in animal form. My daughter also disappeared there in 1987. She became a white cat, and she's still there. You have a choice. You can quit this job and return to a normal life. But if you do, you'll never see your brother again. Or you can continue this job and spend time with your brother. However, I warn you, if you stay too long, you too will change. I did this job for 12 years, and toward the end, I started dreaming of cats every night. Dreams of my limbs covered in fur, forgetting human words. The decision is yours. Whichever you choose, I won't blame you.
I reread the letter many times. The desire to be with Tommy and the desire to live as a human being fiercely conflicted within me. 3 weeks later, changes began to appear in my body. At first, they were small changes. My night vision improved, allowing me to see clearly in the dark. My hearing also became more sensitive. I could hear distant sounds. My food preferences changed. I wanted to eat fish and meat raw, and I started having dreams. Dreams of running around the park on all fours. Dreams of climbing trees and looking down at the entire park from a high vantage point. Dreams of speaking with other cats. In my dreams, I was completely a cat. I consulted a doctor who diagnosed it as stress-induced hallucinations. Blood tests showed no abnormalities, but I knew this wasn't an illness. It was a transformation. On the 4th week's night, I witnessed a Mickey statue move for the first time. Around 2 a.m., the statue at the entrance slowly turned its head and looked at me. But this time, I felt no fear. In fact, I even felt a sense of familiarity.
Good evening.
The statue's mouth moved.
Are you Michael? Tommy has told me about you.
I broke the first rule and started talking to the statue, but I was no longer afraid. I was becoming one of them.
Tommy's doing well.
The statue continued.
He's been waiting for you. You'll be reunited soon.
That night, I walked deep into the park. The river appeared again, but this time I crossed it without hesitation. On the other side, River Country was bustling as if still in operation. Children cheered, and families enjoyed picnics. Among them was 10-year-old Tommy, in human form, wearing the same blue sweater as that day. When he saw me, he waved with a wide smile.
Michael, you finally came. Let's play.
I crossed the river and walked toward my brother. There was no more hesitation. You now know the 4 rules of River Country. Do not talk to Mickey. Do not leave tools unattended. Do not cross the river. If you get lost, follow the cats. And remember the most important thing. Once you set foot in this place, you can never fully return. You will remain there forever, transformed. Like my brother Tommy, like my predecessor Robert's daughter, and like me now. I am writing this journal on my last night before the transformation is complete. By tomorrow morning, I will no longer be human, but it's not a tragedy. Rather, it's a family reunion 40 years in the making. At the park entrance, I am waiting for the new security guard. His name is James Parker, a man who lost his son here in 1991. I'm sure he will walk the same path as me. Even if you visit Florida, do not go near the abandoned river country. The fences and no trespassing signs have a deeper meaning, because you too might learn new rules. And once you learn them, you can never forget. But if you have lost a loved one in this place, if you have been searching for answers for 40 years, if you can no longer bear the pain, then you might want to look for Disney's job postings. The night guard position is always open. We are always welcoming new family members.